years. Didn't bother me. I was a young marathon runner. Never been sick a day in my life. Couldn't faze me. So the EPA took PCBs off the market. And during those 2 years, I had developed a protocol for extracting the toxins out of water and soil and other things, so we could measure the PCB activity. And it was a 32-step process. Now, what I did was take that very 32-step process that I learned at the EPA and developed there, which nobody knew how to do other than us, and did the same thing with organic kiwis. Because if you concentrate down kiwis that aren't organic, you concentrate down pesticides and herbicides, and not a very good idea for a health product. It takes us 3 weeks through a water extraction process to get rid of the high glycemic ingredients in the kiwi, which is glucose and sucrose, and just leave the phytochemicals from the kiwi and what's called the glycosides. Now, the glycosides are the sweetest part of any fruit. When you eat a fruit, what you're tasting is the fruit glycosides. The amazing thing was, we took an arginine molecule, which was blind, and we attached it to this rider. And we call it a rider because it rides through the body. And in this case, it rides through the blood-brain barrier. If arginine doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, you're in a world of trouble because you've got severe side effects. We attach the arginine molecule onto the tritinidolsum. That's what we call the kiwi molecule, tritinidolsum. In fact, if you want to read about the rider, it's at www.thermosweet.com, THERMOSweet.com, and tritinidolcem.com, TRUTINADULCEM. You can print out 50 pages of technical junk if you feel like it. We attach this arginine molecule onto the tritinidolsum molecule. The tritinidolcem molecule rides through the body and crosses the blood-brain barrier. It takes what's called the correct isoform pathway, ISOFORM. Now, because the proarginine follows the correct isoform pathway, it avoids, negates every single side effect known to arginine. Now, just so happens that we hold the patent on tritinidolcem, and we don't let anybody use it in arginine except Synergy Worldwide. So now what we have here is the hottest nutraceutical that's ever hit the face of the earth. Everybody is out there, every scientist and their brother, trying to figure out how to create an arginine formula that doesn't have any side effects. And you know what? There's not one except proarginine. And that is why legally they cannot say that their arginine is safe. We have that claim from the federal government. And if we can't do something with that, honey, I don't know. As I was saying, the very thing that almost killed me is the thing that saved me. Strange things like that happen in life. When I was with the Environmental Protection Agency on my college scholarship, I was a very young girl and was marathon running, preparing for the Olympics. I used to run with Frank Shorter, and he won the gold medal. Of course, I would sit down crying before he ever finished the line, but I worked on the PCB project. And because PCBs are a carcinogen, I was the youngest person ever diagnosed with terminal stomach and esophageal cancer, which isn't a very good thing. The survival rate is less than 2%. With no metastatic sites. I had 14 metastatic sites following surgery. The only thing they could do to attempt to save my life was 9.5 hours of surgery, which was experimental, at Georgetown University Hospital Lombardi Cancer Center in Washington, D.C., where they removed my stomach, my distal esophagus, my rib cage, and my diaphragm. And when they woke me up from the surgery, which was 9.5 hours, They said, gee, we're really sorry. I was to be married in 2 weeks, and it had my wedding gown fitting that very day before. I said, well, we're very sorry, but you have terminal stomach and esophageal cancer, and I don't think there's anything we can do for you. And after I recovered enough to ask them what in the world they were talking about, they said, well, it's from the PCB project that you were on. PCBs cause cancer. And I said, what are you going to do with me? They said, well, you can't have radiation because we built you a new stomach next to your heart. And now my stomach and my heart are together, and you can't radiate the heart. Okay, what about chemo? Well, we predict that within the next week or two, if you survive, you'll go down to about 80 pounds, and we can't do chemo on you. So I said, okay, what's the plan then? Well, we don't really have a plan. We'll just give you morphine every 2 hours in your legs to try to keep you out of pain, but that's going to be impossible because the amount of pain you'll be in, we can't do anything about. So we'll just give you morphine every 2 hours in your legs. Great. So I told my fiance to leave and never come back because he sure didn't need a corpse for a bride, and watched my family in tears over my bed for the next 2 weeks, where I did go down to 78 pounds, and I'm 5'6". At that time, my father called the Linus Pauling Institute in Palo Alto, and he said, my daughter's dying. She probably won't live more than another couple of weeks. She can't eat. She can't drink. She's in excruciating pain 24 hours a day. And Linus Pauling was kind enough, after winning 2 Nobel Prizes, and humble enough to call me. And Linus Pauling said to me, I'm going to write the protocol for you to follow at Lombardi Cancer Center in Georgetown. They've never done this before. They've never allowed it. But they're going to make an exception because you have no other hope, or you will be dead in 2 weeks. And we're going to put you on vitamin C by drip, IV, and vitamin E and selenium and L-arginine. Well, I was a chemist. I certainly knew what L-arginine was. And I said, L-arginine, what does L-arginine have to do with anything? And Linus said, well, L-arginine certainly doesn't cure cancer, and it's not going to cure your cancer. He said, but you don't have a genetic cancer. You have an environmental cancer caused by PCBs. And I think if we can get some weight on you and keep your immune function up, you have a good chance of living. But how am I going to gain weight? How am I going to get my immune function up when it's in the dumper? Because I have 14 metastatic sites and a liver tumor the size of Kansas. He said, well, you're going to have a teaspoon of arginine every hour. And we're going to put IVs in you for the C and the E and everything else. I said, okay. So they sent to Japan for arginine, brought it back, mixed it up with some weird things at Lombardi, and started feeding it to me. Now, arginine doesn't cure cancer, and it doesn't kill cancer cells. But it allowed me to gain weight and to improve immune function in my body so that I had a fighting chance and my own body had a chance to fight the cancer. And it was at that time of despair and agony that I made a pact with God. And I said, okay, that's it, I'm done. It's over, checkmate. But I tell you what, if you'll let me live and look normal again, not like a Frankenstein monster like I look now, because they had cut me in half all the way around. With a 4-inch incision, I had clips going all the way around. Then they had made an incision from here to here, and I had big clips going down. And they'd cut my nose from here to here, and I had sutures in that with a big tube sewed in. And in my side, 2 big tubes sewed in, pumping in and out fluids. Frankenstein is what I looked like, a Frankenstein monster. The day before surgery, I was a pretty young girl. The day after, a Frankenstein monster. I said, okay, God, this is a deal. If you let me live, I will dedicate the rest of my life to working